All right, I'm back. There we go. Should be better now. Yeah, usually YouTube, like, if you stream for like 11 plus hours, they'll like, lag your stream out and stuff like that. It's really annoying sometimes. So, but yeah. So where were we? Someone asked about what database I'm using. I'm using MySQL. And also, if you guys are interested, the code is all in the description. You guys are it's open source project, so you guys can take a look at the code. We actually reached trending on GitHub for TypeScript projects, actually, which is really cool. This is the project itself. There's some documentation that tells you how to set up the project, so you're more than happy to, set everything up yourself if you want to. Here is the link for the backend, and then the front end can also be found in the description as well. So go ahead and check that out. Also, guys, make sure you guys drop that like button on this stream. We're trying to go for we're trying to hit that algorithm again, so make sure if you haven't already, I would really appreciate if you guys drop that like button. So definitely do that if you haven't already. But yeah, so like I said, for those who are new to this stream, we've been working on this for about 2 weeks now, and the code is all open sourced. You're more than welcome to take a look through the repository and see everything and whatnot. And I hope you guys like it. You can also set it up on your local host too. The React app is really easy to set up. Let's go over here and go over to here and clone this and then just run it on localhost and you'll be fine. But yeah, so let me go ahead and is my stream quality bad? Oh no, it's just 1080p. There we go. All right, so this is for friend requests, so let me just fix that real quick. That looks good so far. I'm glad that you like it. I'm glad that you like it. Let's see. So export class friends controller. All right, there we go. And we'll have to fix this as well. So this is now supposed to be friend requests, not friends. Friend request service. And this should actually be renamed to friend request service. Go. Let's see now. Here we go, that should fix everything. So I should be able to create another friend request right now. So there we go. It still says pending, so that's good. And if I look in the database right now, I can see that right over here. Let's see, show tables, select from friend requests. You'll see that we have that one friend request right now over there, which is good. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to have the actual friend created. I feel like though, they'll be the same entity, to be honest. I feel like they'll be the same entity, but it's okay. It's okay. Hi, Anson. Learning a lot from you. Thanks. I'm glad that you are Abdi Samad, and I'm glad that you are learning. Environment variables are so important to use in your applications. Yes, they are. They are indeed, my friend. So I guess we won't have a status, but we will just have sender and receiver. Hey, Just Sound, how are you? Welcome to the stream. Welcome back, guys. Nice to have you all here again. How are you guys doing today? How are you guys doing today? Arson. How are you guys today? It's probably morning for some of you and maybe afternoon for some of you guys. But I hope you all are having a good day nonetheless. I am doing good. How are you doing? I'm not doing bad. So we have friends controller, and so I'm not gonna worry about the controller right now. I really just care about the entity. So let me just go ahead and create this real quick. Okay. I think I think I need to change this to friend request status. Accepted pending. YouTube just recommended your channel to me. I'm doing good. Welcome, Mars Ron. How are you? Well, she said you're doing good, but I'm glad that you're here. Great. What features are you implementing now? Right now, we are working on a friend system. So that's what I'm working on right now. So I'm just working on that. I'll probably finish this and I might get off stream. But I'll be streaming for maybe like 2 more hours or so. Because I do got to get ready for work in about a couple hours. So I have some time. Right now it's only 5 a.m. right now, so I have about 3 hours. But I'll probably stay up for a little bit longer. And then I'll get off. What is the link to that site? Are you talking about the test app? If you guys want to test out the app, it's chwachat.com/register. Do not use your real information though, is what I ask. Don't use your real information. That's the only thing I'll ask from you guys. Just don't use your real information. And if you want to send a test, you can use anson@gmail.com to send a private message as a test. How do you know if your code is refactored too much and getting too carried away? I mean, there's never a thing where your code is too much refactored, you know, because there's always ways that you can improve your code. I would say focus more on consistency, making sure that you're naming your variables consistently across your application, making sure that you're doing things consistently. I'd say that is important. Which front-end development platform are you using? Well, I'm not using a specific front-end deployment platform. I'm deploying it on DigitalOcean. Like right now, this website is all hosted on DigitalOcean 100%. Is programming to interface always good? Because there are times which interface don't know what kind of class does. Why? I mean, it's not always good, but like in reality, it is not really. It's not always good, you know. There are some advantages where you program to the implementation, but the theory behind programming to interface just makes it so that you don't have to worry about implementation details. You can just swap out the interface and then just call it a day and you'll be done. Okay, so accept friend request. We'll set friend. I'm gonna call this friend request. So do friend request status, and then after we do this, we'll do const friend equals this dot. So we'll need to create a You have to carefully design the code in a way that it won't break, though. Yes, I agree. You'll get that experience. You'll get the experience. Okay, so let's see. Friend was not found. Let's go over here. All right, so let's go ahead and do const. Let's see. I think for the parameters, we could probably just use the same one. So I think, for example, I can do sender friend request sender receiver friend request receiver, and the rest should not really matter. Sender receiver create at should be auto created. Hi, how to change caret style to outline? Just go into your VS Code settings and do that. How do you deal with CORS policy errors? You have to enable CORS on the backend server in order to avoid that. What design tool do I use? I use Figma to design my UI. By the way, welcome everyone to the stream. Let's see. So let's go ahead and do await this stop friend request save friend request, and then we'll just return this dot friend repository dot save new friend. So this will take care of accepting a friend request. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and need to call this endpoint friends request ID accept. And so what we'll do is we'll do return this dot friend request service dot accept friend request, and we'll need to pass in the parameters. So the parameters, I believe, is the ID and user ID, like that. So let's go ahead and get the ID, user ID, and we need the route parameter param ID number, and we'll parse this as an int, parse int pipe, and then that should be good to go. And I'm gonna change the method names real quick. Create accept is pending real quick. How are you still coding for this long? I have no idea, honestly. But welcome to the stream, Maloney. Hey again, I just got back from my friend wedding. Any updates? Nice. And right now we're just working on a friend request system right now. I have the app online right now for those who do want to test it out. I have it available right now. So what's going on here? Hey, hello man, I love your content. You were helping me a lot. XXX Garçon. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're doing well. Are style components well used within the industry? Me personally, I love using style components. I don't know the answer to that question, but I can tell you that when I worked for my company, or a company, usually companies will have their own design system. Like they'll have their own design system. The one that we had was an inner source one, and they used Storybook to design everything. Actually, like they had their own separate UI UX team that took care of all that kind of stuff. So it really depends. Some companies like to do things with Storybook. Some people like to use stock components. It really depends. Are you talking about the Figma design? Yeah, I'll share it in a second. Give me 1 second. I'll share it. Okay, so now if I go ahead and call this endpoint right now, so let's go ahead and do this. So right now I'm logged in as Anson, and I can clearly see that if I try to create a friend request with Ibrahim, right, it's not gonna work because there's already a pending request. Okay, so what I'll do, let's go ahead and accept the friend request. So let's go ahead and create a new request. Let's do accept friend request. And this endpoint is a patch, I believe, a patch. So let's do that. So let's do patch API URL, and that's going to be /friends requests the ID of the friend request. So it's going to be, if I remember correctly, it should be ID. We do need a get endpoint as well. The ID is number 1. So if I try to do something like some random number, it's going to say friend request not found. So that works. If I do number 1, let's see what happens. Click send, internal server error. Let's see what happens. It's saying cannot read properties of undefined, and it's happening at, I think, line number 4532. So let's go over to our friend request service and see what's going on. Friend request service, line 45. It's saying that we cannot read friend request receiver ID. And the reason why this is happening is because when we query for the friend request, right, it doesn't work because we do not query the relation. So let's go ahead and create another function. I'll just do find friend request by ID. I'll actually call this find by ID. What database are you using? We are using MySQL. MySQL and type ORM. MySQL is the database. Type ORM is the object relational mapper library that we're using with NestJS. You're driving me to sit and code all the time. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but I hope it's a good thing for you though. I'm glad to be able to, motivate you all to sit there and code. So that is good for me. Hey Vi, how are you? I'm doing good, man. How about you? Long time no see, my friend. Long time no see. All right, so let's do this. Let's do this dot find by ID passing 1, and now we should be able to accept the friend request. Let's go into our code editor. Let's go to Thunder client and let's see what happens if I try to accept friend request number 1. Cannot accept friend request. Let's see what's going on. So it throws that error because we are, let's see what's going on. So it'll throw this error, cannot accept friend request. If, oh wait, a friend request receiver. If friend request.receiver.id. So only the receiver can accept the friend request. So if friend request.receiver.id is not able to use ID, well, that doesn't make any sense, right? Oh, yeah, right. I cannot accept the friend request. Only Ibrahim can. Yeah, that makes sense. So, yeah, it should be throwing the error, right? Because how can I accept my own friend request, right? I'm sending the friend request to the other user. Why am I trying to accept the own friend request? Of course, that should not work. So what we need to do is we need to log in as the other receiving user. So let's do that real quick. Let's log in as Ibrahim.com. Let's hit send. We're logged in. Okay, good. And if I go over here and let's accept the friend request, and I have just accepted the friend request, and it returns back the friend instance. And we go into the database, and we can see that there is now, let's do select from friend request. You can see the status is accepted. Okay. And we can see that select from friends. You can see that now. Not sure why there's a duplicate record. I think this must have been from earlier, I think. Yeah, this is from earlier. So, but this is the correct record though. You can see that we have sender ID, receiver ID, and we now have friend. And so now we'll basically need to be able to render all the friends on the user on the front end. So the way that we'll get all the friends is we'll basically just go ahead and do select from friends where sender ID equals 7 or receiver ID equals 7, and that'll give you all the friends. I'm good. Watching during my break. Nice. What application are you using to write code and test it? I'm using VS Code to write all my code right now. And yeah, I'm guessing you would pick MySQL over MongoDB since messaging app has a lot of need for relational data. Yes, absolutely. I always find myself building apps that have a lot of relational data, and so I always tend to yield towards MySQL. The only times that I ever use MongoDB is if I have an app that has absolutely no relational data whatsoever. And typically those applications would be a lot more smaller and require a lot less relationships in general. Like for example, if I were to build a like an image uploading app with absolutely no persistence whatsoever, I would just use MongoDB because I'm not going to save the user's details at all. D-Clan, how are you? Welcome to the stream. Shat MX, nice to see you here again. I think it is the third or fourth day when I see your stream recommendation list. Well, I'm glad that you're here, Mike L. Welcome to the stream. We are happy to have you here. So what we just did was we implemented a feature to accept friend requests. So now, oh shit, did I just accidentally leak something? Oh no, I'm just kidding, I didn't leak anything. No worries, no worries. No worries. Uzo, welcome to the stream. Good morning to you, my friend. How are you? What have you done? So earlier today during the stream, we have implemented some features. So I'll show you timeline, board, calendar. So this is what we've done so far. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so you can kind of like read what's been going on. We basically fixed up some issues. We worked on the text box. So right now on the actual text box, it supports multi-line, and then you can send messages, blah blah blah. And can we try the app? Sure. I'm gonna be right back though. Give me 1 second, alright? I gotta use the bathroom. I'll be right back. If you guys haven't already, make sure you guys drop that like button if you haven't already. I will be right back and I'll turn the app back on so you guys can all test it out. Give me 1 second. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that. Is it just me or the app is darker? It's because of the dark reader extension, which is why it looks like that. But if I turn it off, it won't look like that. It's because I have dark reader enabled right now. Alright, I am going to turn the app. Okay, so the app should be back on. Let me see if the server's up already. Whoops. You know, I kind of wish I had a sit and stand desk, because I just sit for hours, and sometimes it feels so good just to stand up for a little bit, you know? Problem is that if I get one right now, I'll have to take off my TV that's mounted to the wall, because that's going to be blocking. Okay, so the app should be on right now. You should be able to log in with the same user account. Do I ever touch grass? No, I think the last time I touched grass was probably 6 years ago. Let's see. Yeah, you should be able to log into the same account. I didn't drop the database yet. But yeah, the app is on right now, so you guys can try it out. Personally, I've been working on a Steam workshop type website. I've been using MongoDB and relations that aren't big of an issue. I heard that joins are the main reason SQL MongoDB. Yeah, MySQL is really amazing when it comes to relational data and just like querying everything and indexing. That is, yeah, MySQL, yeah. But MongoDB has its good use cases. I did my uni computer exams on the grass back in 1984. Yes, passed. Let's see. Yeah, you know, try creating an account and then go ahead and play around with it. Let's see. All right. While you guys are playing around with that, I am going to go ahead and continue working on this friends feature. So that's good that friend requests do work. So let's see. Let me just commit all this. Refactor friends. A website link, sure, I'll send it to you right now. Here you go. There is the link. So you can go there. Like I said, do not use your real information when you sign up. Just use fake email, fake password, fake name and everything. And try and create a conversation with myself. You can create a conversation with me. So you can see someone just sent me a message. Hey. Do you have to use real? No, don't use your real details. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Do not use your real details. I am advocating for you guys to not use your real details because I don't want any of your information at all. All right, so I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create some endpoints to see pending requests. So what we'll do is we'll do friend requests. We have post, we have patch. Let's do get. So let's do get friend requests. Auth user. And so this will be very easy. So all we have to do is just call this function. So let's do create get friend requests. Using the user ID, which is a number. Return a promise of friend request, an array of friend requests. And then what we'll do is this will go inside our interface and we'll implement this function right now. So let's do get friend requests, return this dot friend request repository find. And what we'll do is we'll need to do where. Well, actually, this is friend requests, not friends. So I think all we need to do is just do where sender ID is equal to. Let me change this to ID instead. There we go. So this will be for get friend requests. We should also make it so that we can show sending as well as receiving friend requests. Yeah, I think we should also show every single one. So the ones that we sent and the ones that we received. Why don't you use function architecture instead of a class? I mean, that's just kind of how it's done in NestJS. Can you please add notifications to a login page? I'll do that later. That's not really an important thing to do right now. So I think for this, I want to go ahead and get all of the friend requests that we are sending and receiving as well. So we're sender ID. Let's see. The only issue is that I want to make sure that I actually filter them out correctly, but I don't think it'll be a problem though. Receiver ID. Yeah, so with the create convo thing, it says it's optional, but you do need to enter some text in there for it to work. I know it's kind of like a throw off, but yeah, you do need to enter something in order for it to work. But just keep in mind that it's still in development mode, so there's a lot of things that are a little bit buggy. So, is NestJS popular at enterprise level? Absolutely. Why do the buttons have weird classes in the HTML file? That's just how it is when it's auto-generated. With Webpack. Webpack will take care of all of that bundling for you, and it'll just generate the class names for you. A lot of companies actually sponsor NestJS and use it for their applications. So let's see. This should give me all the sender and receiver. I think maybe what I want to do is I kind of want to filter this out so that way we know all. That way we get all the friend requests that are. I'll have to figure this out. Get friend requests, user.id. Alright, let's go here. Let's go here. Request. Get friend requests. Let's do API URL / friends requests. So right now, we also have to filter out too. So let's do that as well. Which is better, Express or Nest? I mean, Express is good, and so is Nest. So it's not more of like which is better, it's just more of which you would prefer to deal with, and which programming style you prefer more. Like for example, earlier, Onur Service, I think that's how you pronounce their name, they were asking why don't you use function architecture instead of class. So for example, if you prefer function style programming, like using just only functions and you don't want to use classes at all, use something like Express, right? If you want to just if you love classes and you love the object-oriented programming aspect and dependency injection, use NestJS. How is the performance in enterprise level for Nest compared to other framework languages? I'm not really too sure about that, but maybe there's probably some benchmarks I can find online that you can compare Nest to Express and stuff. Jonathan, how are you? Welcome to the stream. Wow, the app looks so cool. I'm glad that you like it. Isn't NestJS primarily for TypeScript? Well, yeah. Well, NestJS is TypeScript first. Yeah, I don't think you can even use JavaScript with Nest. I think you can, but it's a little bit weird. Okay, so we need to make sure that we also get friend requests that are pending only. So let's try that again. There we go. So let me create some friend requests right now. Zebra@gmail.com. So, Okay, so if I call this, I'll get 2 friend requests. Okay, now I'm going to log in as another user. Let's log in as someone else. And we'll log in as, let's see. We'll log in as Iden, and then we'll go ahead and create a friend request with someone else. We'll create a friend request with the user that we just was logged in as. So we can see that I just create a friend request. If I try to create a duplicate one, it's not going to work. Now, if I go ahead and get all my friend requests, I can get my friend requests. I can log in as the previous user. Let's get friend requests. You can see that I have all of the friend requests, regardless of who created it and whatnot. What is the app for? It's just a chat app. Are you a student? No. I graduated a couple years ago. Where did you learn all of these stuff? Just mostly online. Will the stream be saved for later? Yes. All of the live streams will be on my channel. They're all available. You can always watch them. And yeah, they're always going to be here. I'm not going to delete them. They will always be there. Okay, so we can see all of our friend requests, which is good. And now, let me go ahead and try to accept the friend request that the other user sent me right now. Before I do that though, let me go ahead and go into my code. And when I go ahead and call find, I really should be returning relations receiver and sender. So that way we know how to filter them out. So if I do this, let's do get friend requests. We can see who the receiver is and the sender is. So this is a good way to kind of like filter out. So basically on the front end, what I would do is I would basically say, okay, if front end logged in user.id is equal to receiver, add it to the receiver list. If the front end .id is equal to sender, add it to sender list. Do you have experience in Fang? I've never worked for a Fang company before. Would you use something like Auth0 for authentication? I personally would not, only because I prefer managing things on my own. But I'm not saying that there isn't a situation where I would not consider it, because I think Auth0 is actually really great. I actually had a chance to use it for a test project, and I think it's really amazing that you don't have to worry about authentication, and you can just let Auth0 take care of it yourself. But if you're really concerned about security and you don't want to worry about security for your application at all, then yeah, go right ahead, use Auth0. So that way you don't have to be responsible for user credentials. Auth0 will be for. So in those situations, it really just depends. Maybe if I'm in a rush building an application, maybe I'll use Auth0. But if I want to manage everything myself, I'll just, do it myself. Why not use a default pick for the users? Will the stream be saved for later? Why do you do it? Why do I do what? Fang companies will be mesmerized by portfolio. Do you prefer other firms? I think Fang is honestly overrated, to be honest with you. I think if you want to work for Fang, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that, dedicating your whole life to only wanting to work for those companies is just something that I don't really want to lose sleep over. If I were to get into Fang, that'd be that would be good. I wouldn't be complaining. But if I wouldn't be able to, then I wouldn't mind at all. It's just all about perspective, I'm not saying that I would not want to work for them. But I wouldn't lose sleep and pull my hair out over getting a job at Fang when there are other companies that I could probably find more interest in, if that makes sense. How much time did Jory spend on this project? About like 100 hours. Do you use middlewares? Yes, we do. Yes, we certainly do, my friend. Okay, so we have all of these friend requests. Okay. Now let's go ahead and try to accept the friend request. So you can see over here, I am currently logged in. Let me go ahead and just create another request for this folder. Let's create a, new request, status, API URL auth status. So I'm currently logged in as Ibrahim, right? So I look over here, you can see that the sender of this request was Iden. So I can actually accept this friend request right now. So the friend request ID is number 4. So I can go ahead and just accept it right now. And I just accepted the friend request. So if I go ahead and call get friend request, you're going to see that this friend request will disappear. And it's gone. Okay, so that's how the friend request system is working, which is working pretty well so far. So on the UI, you can imagine that we can just fetch this data from the backend, and we can go ahead and just render them out, similar to how how any social media platform would do it. When are you going to use user profile settings? Probably after the friend system. So right now, what I have planned is I want to work on the friend feature, and then once we finish the friends feature, I'll probably start working on the profile settings, because that'll be very important, of course, because we want to I think after the friends feature, because the next thing that we're going to do is implement a username system. Right now we're temporarily using email, but we will be needing to implement a username system instead. So yeah, I will prefer startups over Fang. Maybe, I don't know, I'm still a student. I mean, I'm not saying Fang is a bad idea. Like, if you really want to work for Fang, it will definitely, do yourself really well for the future. But I'm just saying, like, if you don't get it, don't stress over, Like, I had a friend who would always like say, oh yeah, if you don't work for Fang, you're screwed. Fang is the best company to work for. And that kind of mindset is just really detrimental to not just themselves, but everyone around. How is the friend system going to work? Basically, we already created the API already. So basically, you can see right over here, I have an array of friend requests, as you can see, and the current status is pending. So on the front end, when you click on the button to accept the friend request, it's going to go ahead and call this API, and only the receiver can obviously accept friend requests, right? You cannot send the request and accept it yourself. Once you've accepted it, right, you'll basically have that person added as a friend. So now, what we need to do after we implement this feature with getting friend requests is we need to actually implement an API to get all the friends. So let's do this. Add API endpoint to fetch friend requests that are not pending. I messed up on my commit message. Undo last commit that are pending. Sorry about that. There we go. Alright, take it easy, Vi. It's manga now because Facebook is meta. Yeah, true. Do you find that going live helps you become more motivated and productive? I mean, I would say that going live does help me not get bored of the project, because multiple people are watching and asking me questions, and there to watch and support, so that also does help a lot. But I mean, I have worked on projects off stream before on my own for many months. One of my longest projects was like 2 years that I have not worked on it since March, because we kind of like the project kind of got canceled already. So but going live does help a lot, though. Seeing all of you guys supporting me, helping me out, giving your feedback, asking questions, and just being awesome viewers at the same time, just makes me happy in general. So it does help a lot, to be honest with you. Not a need, but it does a very well, how do I say this? It's not a need or a must, but it does really help a lot. So when I asked my dad, he said only one thing: get into Fang. Well, I mean, yeah, like, I think Fang, they pay a lot of money, so if you want to go for that, then that's not a bad reason to go for Fang at all, to be honest. Anson, can you bypass the max character in the text if you edit the message? Oh yeah, true, yeah. Like, thanks for pointing that out. I'll have to fix that as well. Thanks for pointing that out. Mang, as Netflix is now Microsoft and Facebook is now Meta. Most people that go into Fang labor for like 2 years are leaving because too much work and stress. Yeah, that is really true. But I would say that, if you can get in, then that's great, because they really are super competitive, especially Google. Like, if you can get into Google, that says a lot. But, if you can't, then, don't stress over it. Like, keep your head up high. Everything will work itself out in the end. Have you tried NestJS? I have used NestJS, yes. My friends who worked in Apple said there's a lot of bureaucracy cases. Hey, Anton, do you stream every day? Yes, I do. Welcome to the stream, Thushar. Do you think that I should use TypeScript and Nest is useful for bigger, complex applications? Yes and yes, Gabor, and welcome back to the stream. it's hard to develop something and be creative. What would you say is a good resource for learning? I started with your dashboard playlist and deviated from the tutorials, but I'm worried about implementing bad habits in my app. I mean, the thing is, here's what I would tell you, right? Don't just watch one person. Watch multiple people. Like, for example, if you're only watching my videos from learning, don't do that. Watch multiple people, so that way you get more perspective from multiple people and how they think, and that would give you an idea of how to create your own thought processes and your own ways of programming style, right? In terms of bad habits, you know, those things are bound to happen regardless. But that's why, like, if you learn, but I would say, like, the bad habits that are really bad are like just not knowing the fundamentals of programming, to be honest with you. Because things like learning design patterns, you know, fixing, you know, bad habits when you're, you know, building like a class and using a bad, those can be fixed, right? But fundamentals, as long as you learn those things properly, I think that'll go a very, very long way. I would say bad habits are usually, you know, started at the very core, usually when you learn programming in the beginning. But if you learn it properly, though, then, you know, you don't have to worry about it so much. But those things can always be fixed, though, if you're willing to fix it. Like, for example, like, if you do things the same way all the time, and if you read something on Stack Overflow that tells you why you shouldn't do it that way, and if you refuse to fix that, right, then you have an issue. Then you have an issue. Siach, how are you? Ping, welcome back, Ping. Front end versus back end. I prefer back end. I have C this semester and Python next. Single-file networking for when you're in. Why do they still teach C? C is actually a very important language, though I do think that C could possibly be replaced with something like Rust in the near future. But C is actually a really, really useful language to understand when it comes to systems programming. So I don't think so. C is definitely very, 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 very still useful. I'm good, just came back home. Nice. Well, welcome back. Whoa, I used the wrong data type. Whoops. Hey, Captain Alpha, how are you? Is TypeScript harder than JavaScript? I wouldn't say that it's harder, but it is a little bit more weirder if you're coming from only a JavaScript background. If you come from a background with Java, you are already used to all the features that Java has that TypeScript already has already. Hey, just came to say hi and gave a like. Sorry, gotta go again. School's been not so fun. Yo, Mod, alright, take it easy, my friend. Hope to catch you soon. Maybe Java can be a substitute for C. Bro, were you live this whole time? It's been 6 hours. Yeah, we've been live all day today. Is NestJS OOP based? Yeah, it does have a lot of OOP fundamentals, yes. Do I have a CS degree? I do. I'm glad that I can watch the stream together with you and not alone. It'll be archived in the video. Yeah, you know, I'll be online for about maybe like an hour or two more. So you guys have me for until the next couple hours or so. But right now we're working on a friends feature on our application. The application is also online right now if you guys want to test out the new features. So I'll send you the link again. You do need to create a new account though. Do you think NestJS is so familiar with Spring Boot? Yes. I always say this. NestJS is the Spring Boot of Node.js. That's all. I'll always say that no matter what. And I can give you so many different reasons why. Now, I'm not saying that it's exactly like Spring Boot, but a lot of the design principles, the fundamentals, you know, dependency injection, auto wiring, MVC, controller service repository layer, things like that are very, very, very important in Spring. And those things translate really well to a framework like Nest, for example, and .NET. I'm good in mathematics. Maybe I'll pass high school. I am planning to apply to Uni of Waterloo. Nice. That's a really good school. Is it going to be like a Discord clone type thing? I mean, we are getting some inspiration from Discord, but I don't want to say it's exactly going to be like Discord because that was never really the intention. But, you know, like, we're just, you know, seeing how far we can go with this application. Carbon? I've not really used it yet, but I've only seen a video that Brad Traversy has done, but I haven't really actually used it myself yet. NestJS, I would say so myself. NestJS is really good for enterprise projects. It's got a lot of great features to it, so I would say so myself. Let's see, friend service. So let's do constructor inject repository friend read only friend repository friend. All right, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do return this dot friends repository find one where ID. Let's see, sender ID, receiver ID. Okay, so in this situation, doesn't matter who the sender or receiver is. Once they have been accepted, then they are friends. Okay, so now we'll go into the friends controller. We'll inject the services friends service private read only friends service friends service like that. Okay, and we'll use a get request get friends. We'll need the auth user, and then we'll do return this dot friend service get friends user ID. So I'm going to go ahead and call that endpoint right now. And let's test this out. So in your opinion, NestJS is kind of similar to Spring then? Yes. So you would recommend learning Nest before Spring? I mean, I would say, like, it doesn't really matter which one you learn, but I would say Nest is a lot more easier only because the documentation for Nest is really, really good. And I feel like you can use that as a resource to learn how these frameworks work, and then once you get really good at Nest, I think translating it over to Spring Boot might be less difficult. Spring Boot is kind of annoying though because the docs are not that great, at least from my personal experience. Do you got multiple keyboards? I do. Right now I'm using my Cherry MX Blue keyboard right now. So is TypeORM for SQL the same as Mongoose for MongoDB? Yes, but TypeORM also supports MongoDB, but it's very limited though. There are some features that you cannot use with TypeORM for MongoDB. Are you going to continue the Discord.js v14 series? At the moment, I don't really have any other plans to make Discord.js videos unless if something comes to mind, like building something like a dashboard or like a tutorials on how to work with databases. But I think maybe the next series that I'll work on is how to use Discord.js 14 with MongoDB and how to use Discord.js 14 with MySQL. Which theme are you using? Use the ! theme command to get the theme. Hello there, I came back from my university and you're still coding. That's some real dedication. Well, welcome back, Fumin. TypeORM or Prisma? I personally prefer TypeORM. Just broke my mic. Oh no. Hopefully it wasn't an expensive mic. In Nest, is it optional to use TypeScript or you have to use? I think you have to use it actually. I don't think you can use Nest without JavaScript. I think you can't use it because of the decorators. I think, yeah, you need to use TypeScript. It's optional? Oh, I didn't know that. That's quite interesting. Let's see, can I get API friends? How is this endpoint set up? What's going on? I think I may have not added the controller. Let's find out. Yep, there we go. I think the last thing we'll need is to import TypeORM module for feature, and we'll need friend entity right there. Do you use 10-finger type? I only type with 2 fingers. Maybe I'll do a keyboard cam someday, and by someday I mean maybe later this week. Did you have a good sleep? I did. I did. All right, let's see. Let me also add the relations as well. Yes, decorators will work in CleanJS because Nest use the Babel transfer to translate decorators to valid JS code. Gotcha. Do you listen to music while coding? Sometimes I do. For the past 12 hours, I actually have not had any music playing at all. Sometimes it distracts me, especially when I'm talking, because I can't hear myself talk. So, let me see. Why is it returning an object though? Because this should really be giving you. Oh, it's find. There we go. Well, you haven't gone to sleep past 12 hours? Nope, not at all. Well, I mean, I woke up like at around like 6 because I was not feeling so well from something that I ate the other day, and my throat was killing me because I was streaming for about like 16 hours a couple days ago, and I was talking a lot, and I guess my throat just like just got worn out from all that talking. Yeah, so on the front, I think what we'll do to render all the friends is we'll basically check the user ID and check if it's equal to sender or receiver, and then we'll just basically map it and transform it so that way we can render the correct person. So right now you can see that I am logged in as, let's see, I'm logged in as Ibrahim, right? So Ibrahim is friends with Anson and Aiden. This is a duplicate. I'll have to, let me drop the table again. Drop table friends. Drop table friend requests. Okay, so now if I do send, let me restart the server. Send. Get friends. You can see that I have no friends in the array over here. Cool. So I think we already have the friend system working already. So now, whenever we search for users to add to a private conversation, we'll actually need to add them first before we can actually do anything. What REST client are you using? It's called Thunder Client. It's called Thunder Client. Did you get the group system finished? Yeah, actually, we did. And you can actually test out the app if you want to right now. There you go. Go there and register. You can see that we received some friend requests, or not friend requests. PC specs. I'll use the specs command to get my PC specs. Alright, so now what we'll need to do is, okay, so we already have a controller to send friend requests, create friend requests, accept friend requests. We should also make it so that we can cancel friend requests as well. So let's see. What extensions do I have installed? I don't really have much extensions, to be honest with you. A lot of those extensions that I have installed are just built into VS Code already. Like, they come with VS Code when you install it, like the language packs and stuff. So I don't really have much that's any different from what you might have. So we'll need to create a function to cancel the friend request. And to cancel the friend request, I think we'll just delete the friend request, to be honest with you. I think to cancel it, we'll probably just need the ID, I think. Much love from Ghana. Thank you, Erasmus. Welcome to the stream. Twitch viewers missed you. Oh, what's going on, Snike? How are you? I think I recognize your name, right? Are you the Snike on Twitch? Yeah, man. I'm sorry. I didn't stream on Twitch, man. Like, man, I don't know what's going on with my internet because like I was streaming on both for like 16 hours and there was no issues. And then yesterday when I was streaming on both Twitch and YouTube, my stream just like crashes, you know. So it just kind of sucks. But I will work something out though because I kind of feel bad for not streaming on Twitch after, you know, all of you guys have like subscribed to my Twitch. So I really feel bad. So I'll definitely have to figure something out. I'll probably have to like lower my bitrate or something. I don't know. But I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good, man. How about you? Alright, let's see. Cancel friend requests. Whoever that was, thanks for following my Twitch. I appreciate that. I have registered. Maybe we'll try using it in future. Sure. Great, it's working. Yep. You can try creating groups as well. Yeah, seems like Zalgo is still an issue right now. That is good. That is good. Thanks, K-Man. I appreciate it. Oh, that was you. Well, thank you. All right, let's see. Do you guys want to see some unit testing? Like, we have not written. I can't speak English. We have not written any unit tests yet. Is that something that you guys would be interested in at all? Some of you guys may have heard of it. Some of you guys may have not. But I could definitely show you guys how I would write some unit tests right now if you guys are interested in. Otherwise, I'll just continue working on this and probably go into the UI soon, so that we can actually fetch all of the friend requests. All right, I'll start a poll. All right, everyone vote. Everyone vote. Do you want to do unit testing? All right. Yeah, just you know, vote in the poll. Let me know. All right, so to cancel a friend request, all we need to do is first obviously find the friend request. So let's see. Let me create a function. Let's see. So luckily we can just find by the friend request ID. So const friend request equals await this dot find by ID async, and let's see. Let's get the ID, user ID, and then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and see this. If the friend request does not exist, we'll throw a new friend request not found exception, which we have created earlier. If the friend request is in fact found, we'll see if the friend request dot receiver dot ID is equal to what we need to do is this. If let's see, cancel. I feel like cancel and reject should be the same thing. I'm not sure. You know, we'll do it differently. So what we'll do is only the person who sent the request. So if friend request dot sender dot ID is not equal to the user ID. So remember, the user ID is the person that is actually making the API call, which is the authenticated user. So only the person that is sending the request can actually cancel the request. So if friend request dot sender dot ID is not equal to user ID, then we'll throw an error, and we'll throw friend request exception. And let's see, what else do we want to do? Let's see. From here, okay, yeah, I think this is fine. Okay, yeah, I think from here, what we can do is we can do friend request. We can just delete the friend request from the database. We don't need to keep it. So we'll do return this dot. Let's do friend request repository delete, and for now we'll just delete it by the ID, but later on we might need this record later, so we'll have to return it back to the front end so that way we can actually update the state in real time. So let's see, what happens if we go over here and let's do return this dot friend request service dot cancel. We'll pass in the user ID and then the ID like that. Can I purchase this project off of you? I have no idea how to answer that right now. But if you're actually serious about that, I might consider it, but we'll see, we'll see. Right now, I just want to, like, you know, build it as much as I can for learning purposes. But, you know, I don't know where this, you know, project will go. But, you know, if you're actually serious, send me a DM and, you know, we could work something out. I do. Do you use, I mean, let me see. If you want, you can just send me a message on Discord and we'll talk about it. But at the current moment, I'll just only do this for learning purposes only. So, yeah. Yeah, no worries, no worries. Let's see. I think this should work. Let's test this out. Always got to test out your code. How is the auth system working? The auth system is basically, we're using Passport, and the user has to sign up with their email and password. And then once they sign up, they can log in. And it uses Passport local strategy to take care of all of that. At the moment, there is no email verification, no. Cancel friend request. Let's do, it's a delete. Let's do delete API URL. And then we'll do slash, what was the endpoint again? The ID of the friend request. So ID and then cancel. Okay, gotcha. Perfect. Cannot delete API. Oh yeah, it's supposed to be friends. ID. Not found. Interesting. Delete ID cancel. Oh, it's friends requests ID. There we go. Okay. So now let's go ahead and see if we have any friend requests. So we don't. So who am I logged in as? I'm logged in as Ibrahim. So let's go ahead and log in as someone else and send a friend request over. So let's do anson@gmail.com. Let's go ahead and create a friend request. So let's send it to Ibrahim. There we go. We have a pending friend request right over here. Let's log back in as Ibrahim. And let's see if we have any friend requests. So get friend request. You can see that we have one. Okay. So let's go ahead and accept that friend request. Well, actually, we don't want to accept it. We want to go ahead. Well, let's accept it first. Actually, wait. Let me accept it. Okay. So now I can go ahead and call get friends. And now we have a friend. And if I get friend request, it's gone. So let's go ahead and send another friend request to Ibrahim. So let's do iden@gmail.com. So we'll go ahead and create a friend request with Ibrahim. Okay, there we go. So now if I call get friend request, you can see that this is the friend request over here. And because we are the sender, on the front end, we'll have to basically show it as an outgoing friend request. Okay. So now what we're going to do is, since we are logged in as the sender, right? We're logged in as the sender. I want to go ahead and cancel that friend request that I just created right now. So the friend request over here is ID of number 2. So first, let's go ahead and log in as Ibrahim, and let's try to cancel that friend request. You'll see that it'll throw an error because we are, well, it should say cannot cancel friend request. The reason why it throws this error is because we are not the person who sent the friend request. Only the person that's sending the friend request can cancel it. Okay, so now let's log in as the person who sent the friend request. There we go. So let's cancel it. So we have successfully canceled the friend request. And now if I try to send another friend request, it should work because I just deleted it. And I can cancel the friend request again. You'll see that the ID of the friend request is number 3, I believe. So let's go ahead and cancel it again. And you see with that, it was just canceled. If I go ahead and try to call get friend request, it's not there. If I try to accept that friend request, it says friend request not found because it's deleted from the database. Bro, I really admire for how long you stream it with dedication. Thank you, Shot. Yo, welcome back, Triboy. How are you? Do you verify email? No, yeah, it hasn't existed yet. Do you have Note the possibility to send iMessages or images. Yeah, it's on my Asana board right now. Okay, so the cancel friend request feature is working, so that is good. All right, so let's see how many of you guys want to see unit testing. 71 votes. Wow, a lot of you guys really want to see. 72. Wow. All right. So let's go ahead and the poll, and I'll show you guys how we can write some unit tests. So since that's something very popular, and I'll show you guys how easy it is to write unit tests, and I'll do my best to explain what exactly is unit testing, so that way you guys are not confused. Yeah, I'm fine. Sorry for complaining. Oh no, you're fine, man. You're fine. Don't be sorry for that. Don't be sorry for that, my friend. All right. So, let's go ahead and do this. So, basically, I'm gonna go ahead and write some tests for this friend request route. Before I do that, though, let me just write this commit message to cancel friend request API endpoint. All right. So let's go ahead and create a folder called tests. And typically what you do with Angular and NestJS apps is you'll create a spec file or a test file. So you could do something like friend requests.spec.ts, or we're going to test the controller first. So we're going to do friend requests.controller.spec.ts. So you can either call it .spec or .test. It doesn't really matter because the Jest framework will just basically take care of running it for you. So we'll call it spec, okay? And so what we want to do when we create these unit tests is we basically want to start off by creating a class. I'm trying to remember how I've done this in the past. Let me see. Because it's been a while since I've written a test case with NestJS. So give me 1 second. Okay. So let's see. What we'll do is we'll import the test package or test class that comes from NestJS testing. We'll import testing module. Have you tried tRPC? I have not tried tRPC. So we'll go ahead and create a test suite using the describe function, and this will take in a string. So we'll just call this friend requests controller. Okay. And this is just going to be an arrow function. And so what we'll do when it comes to testing our controller is this. We'll go ahead and set up this before each real quick. So before each. So this is, you can think of before each like a hook. Basically before each test, it's going to run the callback function inside. So what we want to do is, since we're testing a controller, we want to go ahead and actually define that controller, but not initialize it. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and say let friend request controller, and then we'll type annotate it as friend request controller like this. And we don't want to initialize it because we want to let the before each function take care of that. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to go ahead and declare a variable called module, and the type annotation for this will be testing module, because what we're going to do is we're going to call it test.create testing module, and this will return an instance of testing module. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and pass in some properties. So it's going to look very similar to an actual module object right over here. We're going to have controllers. So we want to pass in the controller that we want to test. So that's going to be the friend request controller like this. And then any providers that the controller will have, we'll basically need to provide them as well. For now, I'll leave it as an empty array just to show you what will happen is if we leave it empty. And I'll call compile, okay, to actually create the instance. Let's see what's going on over here. Oh, I think we need to await this. Yep. This is an asynchronous function call. Okay. So once you're done with that, what you want to do next is you want to go ahead and reference this control. I'm going to rename this to controller, to be honest with you. Let me rename this to that. Okay. Now notice how over here I'm passing in the actual class and not the actual instance itself. Okay. But what we're going to do is we're going to reference controller, and you're going to go ahead and reference module, and then you're going to call get. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pass in invoice controller, or not invoice controller, friend request controller. So you're going to pass that in over here. So the way that it works is basically, it will basically map the controller's class name, I believe. And then it will basically create the actual instance for you. And to get it, you'll just basically pass in the class name over here like that. Okay, and you can also be more specific and type annotate this get as a friend request controller like that. So then now you'll have access to controller dot, and you can call all of those functions that we have defined in our controller for each route right over here. So that should be pretty much it. The first thing that we should do when you test your files, you should do this. We'll use the it function, and we'll just basically write controller should be defined, and we'll pass on a callback function, and then we'll use an assertion expect controller, pass in that control instance, and you can basically do a bunch of stuff. You can write a bunch of different types of tests. So I want to ensure that this controller instance is actually defined, because if it's not defined, then that means there's an issue. So let's do that, and now let's go ahead and run this test right now. So I'll show you how this works. So I'll go over here, I'll cd into the NestJS project, and I'll run yarn start or yarn test, and I think that's a script, yarn test. Test watch, okay, and I'll pass in friend hyphen request, so that way it knows which test files run. So by doing that, it will only run the controller test right over here, and you should see that it should succeed, or actually it should throw an error. So right now it's complaining about it cannot resolve the dependencies, and the reason why is because we have this friend request service as a provider, and since we are writing unit tests, we want to actually make sure we are mocking any dependencies such as our service class, right? The reason why we want to mock it is because we don't actually want to actually call any of the functions that are inside friend request service that will then invoke the database, right? We only want to test these functions and make sure that it does what it's supposed to do. Probably testing this controller will probably not that be significant, but when we test the service, that will be a lot more easier. But to set up a provider for your controller, all you got to do is just literally just provide the token. So it's services dot friend request service, and then to mock out the service. So watch this. If I don't pass in, actually, let me do this. I'm going to use value, okay, and then I'll leave it as an empty object. And so we'll go ahead and see that the test has passed. So if you run the test in watch mode, it'll automatically rerun the test every single time you save. Hello, thank you so much for your help last night. No worry, Dongi, and welcome to the stream. Okay, so let's write some more meaningful tests. So this is how I would write a test to test out our controller. Now, right now, our controller, it's kind of like hard to write like a meaningful test, right? Because when you're writing a test, you also want to make sure you're actually writing meaningful tests and not just writing tests just to write it, right? Right now, if I were to write a test, there's not much that we can do, because in the controller layer, we're not really, like checking anything. We're not really, writing any if-else conditions. We're not, returning, different status codes inside the controller. And the reason why this is not a bad thing is because NestJS has its own exception layer that handles exceptions for you. So if you want to actually write meaningful tests to test your controller in NestJS, you should actually consider writing end-to-end tests. That will be a lot better. And if we have time, I'll show you guys how to set up an end-to-end test. But for now, we'll just write a simple test, and then we'll write a test for the service class. So what I'll do is I'll write another describe to kind of organize my tests a little bit. And the first function that I'll test is get friend requests. So right over here, get friend requests. And there's really not much that we'll probably do with this function, because like I said, it just doesn't really do anything aside from just calling get friend requests. So what we could do is this. We can probably just do something like, let's see, await controller dot get friend request, and we just pass in a mock user. So I'll show you how we can mock that out. So what I'll do is we'll mock out a user. So typically what you want to do when it comes to mocking, so first of all, what exactly is mocking, right? So when it comes to mocking, you typically, actually, I think the proper term is actually stubbing, actually. So I should say stubbing. But basically what you want to do is you want to create like a fake object that represents a user. Okay. And what you want to do is you basically want to actually like create like a fake object that represents a user. So here's what we could do, right? So what I'll do is I'll go inside my source folder. I'll create a __ mocks folder, and I'll just do let's see, maybe index.ts. Okay, and I'll do export const mock user. Okay, and what I can do is I can basically just create a mock user. So let's do that. And so what I'll do right now is I'll set up a fake ID. So let's do 4440005, something like that. Email test@test.com. First name test. Last name test user. Password, some random string. Messages can be an empty array. Doesn't really matter too much about that. Groups, something like that. So we have a mock user. So now what we could do is we can just go ahead and import that mock user. So let's do const. Let's see. Mock user. We'll just pass it in here. Okay. So basically, I'm going to go ahead and call get friend request and pass in the mock user right over here. Okay. And so, like I said, there's really not much things that we can really do with our. There's really not much that we can test with our controller unless we do an end-to-end test. Okay. But what we can do though is we can basically test to see if the function is actually being called. So right now, let's just see the test right over here. Let me see what's going on. Returning promise and scripts support must be asynchronously. Let's see. That is very annoying. So let's do this. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll do this. Let's go ahead and get the services. Let's go ahead and get the service because we haven't done that yet. So let me go over here. Let's do service friend request service friend request service, and we'll go ahead and get that instance right over here. So friend request service equals module.get, and we'll pass in friend request service, and then we'll do services dot friend request services. So this will go ahead and grab the friend request service for you. Okay, and we are mocking it. Keep that in mind. Okay, so let me also just do this. Expect friend request service to be defined as well. Okay, so this will ensure that the friend request service dependency is defined. Now I'm not sure why this is happening right now, but it's okay. So let's go ahead and do this. So what we'll do is we'll basically we'll write an insertion. We'll say expect friend request service dot get friend request to have been called. And if I save, let's see what happens. Hopefully it does not. Returning a promise from the scribe is not supported. That is really annoying. Oh, wait, my bad. Sorry about that. This should be inside an it. Whoops. Sorry about that. Okay, there we go. Thanks for reminding me. So it should call friend request service dot get friend requests. Okay. So if I save right now, you can see that. So let's see what happens with our test. Now it's going to go ahead and say this is not a function, and the reason why is because we actually need to mock it out. So over here in use value, we're going to go ahead and actually mock out this function. So we'll do get friend requests, and we can just call just.fn and do something like this, right? Just a mock function. Doesn't really matter because it's just mock function. You can see that right over here. It's saying that should call friend request service dot friend request. So our test is passing. Now, like I said, the test is not really that meaningful, but we can also negate the test to ensure that it actually is not a false positive. So if I negate it, you can see that it says it actually is being called whenever we go ahead and call controller.getFriendRequest. So we know for a fact that getFriendRequest is being called. Now we can also make it so that we can test to ensure that it's being called with the correct parameters. So watch this. We can also test to make sure that getFriendRequest is being called correctly with the user.id. So we can do expect friend request service dot get friend requests to have been called with, and right now we can see that in the code it's supposed to be called with the user's ID. So if I pass in some random value like this, that is not the user's ID, we can see that the test is going to fail. Okay, and you can see that right over here, it expected the actual user ID that came from the mock user, which was from right over here. Okay, this number over here. But the actual number that was received was a different number. Okay, so that's how you know that we can, that's how you know that the test is actually working. So we can do mock user.id, and if I click, if I hit save and I look at the test, let's see what's going on over here. Called with 0 arguments. That is interesting. Let's see what's going on here. Yo, Sniz, thank you so much for the donation, man. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, there we go. I don't know why that suddenly... Maybe there was like some... I don't know why that now works. Before it didn't work. But, yo, thank you, Sniz, for the donation, man. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you. So there you go. Now it works. So now if I go ahead and if I just pass in an invalid value, even if I call toString on this, it should fail, technically. Alright, because it should be a numeric value and not a string. There you go. So this is failing because it's expecting the actual numeric value, not a string value, as you can see. So hopefully that makes sense to all of you. Hopefully there's no confusion. And if there is any confusion, feel free to ask questions. Okay, but like I said, writing a test for this function isn't really that meaningful. So doing it with an end-to-end test would be a lot better. But if you're just writing the test just to get code coverage, that's also fine as well. So let's go ahead and write another unit test for create friend request. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's do this. Now you don't have to actually write a describe for every single test. I'm just gonna delete this, and I'll just put everything inside it because we already have a describe block already up top over here. But one thing that we should also do is that we should also clear all mocks. So I'll call just.clear all mocks, just so that we have some clean state. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll write another test and I'll go ahead and test out this create friend request function. So we'll write a test where it should call the create friend request function with the correct params. And usually whenever you write your test names, you want to name it properly. One thing that I learned is that the best way that you can help someone else understand what's going on with the code base is by writing unit tests and end-to-end tests and integration tests that describe what is going on. Because when they read the test names, when they read the test suite names, they can get an understanding of what is the actual behavior of the application. So hopefully that makes sense. Hello, I would like to know your opinion. What do you think it's too late to start learning JS 22 years old? No, absolutely not. I think learning at 22 years old is, you still have a lot of time to learn and get a job. So go ahead and, start learning JavaScript because, you're never too old to learn these things. So if you're definitely concerned about that, don't let that be a concern of yours. There's a lot of people who are even older than yourself that are learning JavaScript. Like I know people who are 50 years old learning JavaScript and working as a software engineer at the first time. So, hopefully that gives you some insight. But yeah, so let's go ahead and write a test for this. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and test out this create friend request. So we'll also need to ensure that we mock out this create function. Otherwise, it's going to throw an error that that function does not exist. So we'll do this create is equal to just.fn. And just.fn just basically turns this create into a mock function. It literally just creates a mock function. Okay. Did I go to school for CS? I did. Okay. So now, well, let's go ahead and do wait controller dot. And we'll go ahead and call create friend request. So we're going to call this function now. And now this is going to require two parameters. It's going to need to require a user and it's going to require a create friend DTO. So we'll create a mock for that. We don't even need to create a mock for that. We can just pass in an actual object literal because it's just only one property. So let's just pass in the same mock user. And for the email, we'll just pass in anson@gmail.com. Okay, so let's do that real quick. Okay, so we're going to call this function, and now what we want to do is we want to make sure that this friend request service.create function was called with the correct parameters. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and do this: expect friend request service.create, and we'll write an assertion to have been called with, and we want to make sure that it has been called with the correct parameters. So we'll say user mock user. So that is because you can see right over here in the code, what we're doing is we are expecting the user object, the authenticated user, to be passed in into the create function inside the object, right? And we also want to make sure that the correct email was passed in. So if I go ahead and do answer@gmail.com, okay, and so now if we run the test, you should see that it should pass. There you go, it passes, right? If I were to go ahead and pass in the incorrect email, right, you'll see that the test is going to fail. And it makes sense, right? Because the expectation is not matched to what was received, right? We expected, let's see. Well, this is a little bit weird because we should expect the actual, we should expect this answer@gmail.com email, but we received this one. So watch this. Expected, let's see. Oh, right, yeah. We're expecting this to be the email, but we received answer@gmail.com because that was what we called create friend request with. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully get the idea behind it, right? Because that's really what it is when it comes to unit testing, right? Now, like I said, it's not really meaningful to write these controller tests right now because there's really not much that happens. So let's go ahead and write some tests for the service class. So I think that will be a lot more interesting. So let's do friend request.service.spec.ts. And so right now we'll go ahead and write a unit test for the get friend requests function. So I'll show you how we can do that. I think writing unit tests for this will be a lot more fun in my opinion. Okay, so let's do that. So we'll basically set up the file the same way. We'll import test, and we'll import testing module. Do you stream on Twitch or just YouTube? I actually stream on both, but right now, today, I'm only streaming on YouTube. I'm gonna be right back real quick. Give me a second. All right, hello. I'm still here. Is the stream lagging or something? I got a little bit concerned because you guys posted the loading. I'm still here, right? You guys can still hear me? All right, awesome. All right, cool. All right, so let's continue. So to write a test for the service file, we'll do the same thing. So we'll describe, and then we'll call this friend requests service. And then we'll go ahead and do the same thing. So I'll just copy and paste what I did for controller. So we'll just copy and paste this whole thing and just change it up. So this time, instead of controllers, because we're not testing a controller, we're testing provider, what we want to do is this. So we'll go up here and we'll go ahead and define the service. And the type annotation for this service will be friend request service right over here. Or actually it should be friend request service. That's the interface. Because remember we're working with interfaces, right? And so what we'll do is we'll go ahead into providers and we want to just pass in Actually, yeah, this is fine. So for providers, we'll just pass in ifriend request service. Or actually, no, I think we might. I actually think we might need to do it like this. Hold on. Friend request service. Yeah, I'll just do it like this. Okay. And so what we can do now is after we compile the module, we can go ahead and do service equals module dot get, and then type annotate as friend request service, and then pass in the friend request service class. And this will get you the actual service from the module, right? Because really, this module itself is it just manages all the dependencies for you. So you can just easily get the necessary service dependency by calling module.get. Okay. So now what we can do is we can go ahead and write a simple it should be defined, and we want to make sure that expect service to be defined. So because if it's not defined, then you have even more issues, right? So if it is defined, then that's good. So now it's saying that friend repository is a provider. Is it part of the current root test module? So the reason why this is happening is because we have a dependency in our friend request service, as you can see over here. Well, we have multiple dependencies, right? We have 2 repositories, and then we have 1 service as well. Okay, so we need to make sure that any dependency that we are using in our application, we are mocking it out. Otherwise, we're gonna have issues. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. I read the doc of Nest, and they recommend using GraphQL for REST. So you're gonna use GraphQL for this project. I mean, I already use REST already, but I would like to see that part where they recommend GraphQL for REST. I mean, it depends on like when you should use GraphQL. Like, you don't just want to only use GraphQL just because someone says. It has to like make sense on why you should use GraphQL. You know what I mean? Like, it has to make sense why you want to use GraphQL. Okay, so what I'm going to do now in order to mock out these dependencies, right? Because here's the thing, right? When you're writing unit tests, you don't actually want to call the database. You want to actually mock out any dependency or any function call that calls either an API or a database, right? Or read some file, because your unit tests should be fast, right? They should never actually perform any network operations. So you want to actually make sure you mock out anything like that. So we're going to have to mock out all of our dependencies over here. So what we'll do is this. Inside providers, right? What we want to do is, I'm going to delete this because we actually don't want to do that there. What I want to do is I want to mock out, let's do the iUser service first. So we'll do provide services dot users, okay? And then we'll do use class. And then for the class, we'll do user service like that. Okay, so this will take care of that. Okay, but of course, actually, wait, sorry about this. It shouldn't be services.user. It should be services.friend request service. Sorry about that. And for use class, it should be friend request service like this. And this should actually be ifriend request service. And then down here, this should be ifriend request service, and for the argument here, it should be services.friend request service like that. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and mock out the other dependencies. So the other dependencies are the iUser service. Let's mock that out. So we'll do provide services dot users, and then use value. So we'll have to mock out those functions later when we're testing any of the functions that call any of those methods from the user service class. Okay. We'll then mock out the repositories. So to do that, we'll do provide, and we'll call get repository token, and we'll pass in the repository. So let's see, we'll do. Let me see this real quick. Give me 1 second. Oh yeah, we can just do this. Friend, like that. Okay. and then use value. And then we'll do the same thing for friend request. So friend request like this. Okay. So now let's also define two more variables for the, well, actually, let's do this. Let's do friend request service. Let's change this over here because we also have a user service as well. So let's just go ahead and let's see. Just make sure everything is working. Okay, cool. All right, so we should also make sure that we get the user service. So user service, type annotate to iUser service, and then we'll go down here and we'll do user service equals module dot get, and then iUser service, pass the services dot users. So that will get you the user service, and we should also make it so that we should also ensure that user service is also defined as well. Okay. Might need to wait a little bit. There we go, cool. Cool, so now, after we do this, let's also make sure we define the repositories for the friend and the other repository, the friend request repository. So let's do let friend repository, type annotate this to repository friend, and then let friend request repository friend request. Okay, so now we'll do the same thing. We'll take these variables and we'll assign it to the value that we get from module by calling module.get. And you can type annotate it as well. We know that this is going to be of type repository of friend. So we can just very easily type annotate like this and then call module.get and then pass in the token. So that's just friend like this. What's going on over here? That is very interesting. That is very interesting. All right, we'll just leave it like that. Let's see, friend repository equals module. And we'll do the same thing on here. We'll do friend request repository. Use module.get friend request. That should be fine. Well, when I read the GraphQL part of the doc, they said GraphQL component types helps you develop better safety apps. Give me 1 second. Interesting. All right, I guess this is fine though. All right, cool. So if I was purchasing this project, the main ads that are needed are usernames and everything being created. Could you do this? To be honest with you, if you purchase this project, I probably wouldn't even want to work on it anymore because the only reason why I'm even doing this is not for money, but just for fun. But yeah, I mean, you know, we'll talk about that later though. Don't worry. Is the chat problem solved? What chat problem specifically? Friend repository. Okay, so let's go ahead and just make sure that this is defined. So to be defined, expect friend request repository to to be defined. All right, cool. So let's see. Let's just make sure that these are passing. Let's see. Nest cannot find friend element as part of this context. Okay. Let's see what's going on. That's very interesting. Let me see. Cannot find. Friend request service. Let's see. Watching you from school. Nice, nice. Let's see. Not sure what's going on with this, to be honest with you. Module.get. Oh wait, it's not this. It's gets. Hold on. You might need to pass in the same get repository token friends. What do you mean? Oh, like this. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, you're right. Get repository token. Bro, when will I be like you? Keep practicing, keep coding, and you will get there, my friend. Alright, so there you go. They're all whoops, did not mean to do that. So it's all passing, that's good. Okay, so now we can continue with this. So let's see. Alright, so let's write some test cases now that we got this all set up. I promise you it's not that difficult, it's just that I haven't done this for a while, but once you get the hang of it, everything just becomes intuitive. I went to bed and I woke back up and you're still going. Yup, we're still going. Okay, so let's write a test case for get friend requests, okay? So let's do this. It should call get friend requests. Okay. So what we want to do is we basically want to call get friend requests with an ID. Okay. And here's the thing though, right? Here's where it gets tricky, because now how do we know what exactly to test? And how do we know what exactly we should do, right? This is where it gets tricky. So this is where you need to actually learn how to actually mock out your functions, because like I said before, we don't want to actually call the database when we are actually unit testing. You save that for end-to-end testing. So you can see that this get friend request function is supposed to do only one thing, and that's really just to return an array of friend requests, right? So now depending on what it's supposed to return is based off of the ID. Right? Now, when it comes to this, you can write a custom function that can do that, but you don't really need to do that, because all you really need to do is just make sure that the parameters are being called correctly. So for example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that when I call get friend request, it's going to go ahead and actually call this friend request repository.find with the correct arguments, right? Because if I were to just return a mocked value, it's not really going to make much sense, because we're not really testing anything. We're really just like returning a specific value to satisfy the test, and that's not really a meaningful test. And like I said, you can save these tests for end-to-end testing. So what we'll do is this. So I'll go ahead and do await. Whoops, let's do async await. So we'll do this. We'll do let's see, friend request service. So now keep in mind that friend request service is the class that we are testing. So notice how we call use class, or not call it, but we provide the use class property, and then we pass in the class itself. Notice how we are not using use value, because you only use value when you actually want to mock out the dependency. In our case, we are not mocking what we're trying to test. So keep that in mind. So we'll do await friend request service dot. So we'll go ahead and call get friend request, and we're going to just pass in an ID. So I'll just pass in 20. Can pass in whatever. Okay. So nothing's going to happen, obviously. Now you're going to see that, well, one thing is going to happen. It's going to throw an error, and it's telling you that this friend request repository.find is not a function. The reason why this is happening is because, well, we have our friend repository that is being mocked right? But the find function has not been mocked yet, so we have to actually mock it. So what we'll do is we can just do find just.fn, and you just make this a mock function like that. Okay, you can have it return whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so watch this. Let's see what's going on here. This should not throw an error now. Let's see, promise. Let's see what is going on over here. Let's see what is going on. Oh, it's friend request. Whoops, it's friend request. Have you added an option to decline a friend request? Not yet, only cancel friend request. Let's see what's going on over here. Use value, find. Let's see. Okay, there we go. All right, so there we go. So we just mocked the find method for the friend request repository. So this friend request repository has been mocked right over here. So inside the use value, you can basically define the same methods on the repository and mock them. So for example, the friend request the repository also has a create method, and I can also mock that as well if I want to. Okay. So anyways, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do this. So now that we have mocked the find method, right? Because like I said, we don't actually want to call the actual database, because unit tests are not supposed to do that. Okay, that's not the responsibility of a unit test. So now what do we want to do is, well, I think a good unit test would be ensuring that this find method is being called with the correct parameters. So what I'll do is I'll say expect friend requests, friend request, or actually let me do this, expect friend request repository dot find. Okay, so we want to go ahead and expect this to have been called with, and we're going to go ahead and just pass in the object that we want it to be called with. So you can see that right over here. The only values that will change, of course, are the sender ID and the receiver ID. Status will stay the same. The relations will stay the same. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and do where, and then sender ID needs to obviously match the ID that we passed in to get friend request, right? So we'll do ID 20. Okay, and status pending, and we'll do the same thing right over here. Receiver ID status pending, and the other property was relations receiver sender. Now, of course, you could also just pass all this. You could also just assign all of this to like a mock object if you want to. But now, if I go ahead and save, you can see that our test is actually passing, which is good, which means that it's being called correctly. Now, to ensure that there's no false positives, because that does happen sometimes, you can go ahead and just change the value of either the value you're passing into get friend request like this. So I'll change to 30, and you'll see that it's going to throw an error. The test is going to fail, and you're going to see that right over here. It's saying that it expected ID of 20, right? We expect friend request repository.find to have been called with, and then inside these two objects, the ID should have been 20. And you can see that right over here in green is what we expect, but in red is what we received. And obviously the test is going to fail because we are passing in 30 but expecting the ID to be 20. Okay, so that's good because that means we know that it is calling the database with the correct ID. Okay, so this helps. This ensures that we are actually passing in the ID to the type rm find method based off of what we're passing to get friend request, which is good. Okay, and of course you can also change this back to 20, change this to 30, change this to 25, right? So you can play around with it. You can, you know, change up the parameters a little bit. And now you can see that I had passed in 20, okay? And I am expecting it to have been called with ID of 30, ID of 25, and you can see over here, it's saying expected 30 received 20, expected 25 received 20. Okay, so that's just another example. So let's just go ahead and assign the ID back to 20. And I can also just change the status to something else. Let's say, for example, I can change the status to, you know, accepted. and we will see that the test will throw an error, or the test will fail, because we are expecting it to be pending, but it says accepted, which is not good, of course. Okay? So hopefully this gives you some insight. Okay. But hopefully that makes sense. I know it's like a lot of stuff to take in all at once, but hopefully that makes sense. It will take some time to really get used to unit testing. But yeah, so you can think of different scenarios on what you could do. I think a better unit test that we could write is, let's write one for this cancel function. Okay? Because there's a lot of different cases that we can handle. So let's see what happens. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's do it. So let's do this. Let's create a test suite called describe. Let's do cancel friend request. Okay, and then let's go ahead and create some tests inside here. So let's do it should not find the friend request. Okay, so watch this. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to ensure that it should not find the friend request. So how do I make it so that we can have that behavior happen? Okay, because like I said, remember, we only want to ensure that the cancel function is working. I don't care about what these other functions are doing. That's the whole purpose of unit testing, right? I only want to ensure that this cancel function is behaving expectedly. And what that means is I want to make sure that the logic that I write inside the cancel function is working. So for example, inside the cancel function, it's supposed to throw an error if there's no friend request. It's supposed to throw an error if the sender ID does not match the user ID, okay? And it's supposed to delete the record from the database, right? I don't care what happens with find by ID. I don't care what happens with friend request not found. I don't care what happens with all of these other functionalities inside. I only care about what happens with the cancel. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to call this cancel function. So we'll do await friend request service dot cancel, and we're gonna need to pass in the ID and user ID. So the ID is the ID of the friend request, so we'll just pass in 20, and then for the user ID we'll just pass in, let's do 40, and we'll add async here. Okay, now what we'll do is we want to go ahead and make it so that we can actually mock the implementation of this.findById, because we know that this method returns a friend request or it doesn't. So we actually want to make it so that it does not return a friend request. So how do we actually do that? How do we actually do that? Well, what we could do is this. I can go ahead and use just.spyOn. I can pass in friend request service. And I can go ahead and spy on the find by ID method. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to mock the implementation. So in this situation, I want to mock find by ID to ensure that it does not return a friend request. So I'll do, I think, mock implementation once, and what we'll do is we will need to return a promise. So what I'll do is I'll do promise.resolve, and we want to return a mock friend request. So I can go ahead and just create a mock friend request right now. So I'll go inside here, I'll do export const mock friend request. Right, I'm actually going to just hard code the data over here for now. So I'll do ID of, well, actually we don't want it to be found, so this should be promise result of undefined. Okay, so this will basically mock the implementation. So that way, when it actually calls find by ID, it'll return undefined. And then, because the value of this is undefined, that means friend request should, this right over here should cause this error to be thrown. So let me show you real quick. Okay, so you can see right now when I save, you can see that it says friend request is not found. The error is in fact being thrown. So that means we know that it's working. If I were to change this to an actual, let me do this, ID sender let me mock this out real quick. Let's see. I'm just gonna do this real quick. So that way we don't have to pass in every single value. So now if I save this and if I run the test again, you're gonna see that it doesn't throw the error. Like, so you see how now that I changed the resolved value of find by ID, you see how now it's not throwing the error, but in fact it's erroring out over here. So this is how you can play around with mocking the return value of functions and mocking the implementation of functions to test different scenarios with your application. So what I'll do is I'll go back to what we had before. We'll resolve an undefined value. Okay. Okay. And what we'll do is we want to basically expect that this will throw an error. Okay. Now it's a little bit tricky it's a little bit tricky to do this, but what we could do is this. We can basically do await. Well, actually, let's do this. We can basically do expect friend request.cancel and then pass in the arguments. And then we can call rejects to throw. Okay. And then we can just expect it to throw an instance of the error. So let's see what error was supposed to throw. It was supposed to throw an instance of friend request not found. So I just pass in that right over here. So watch this. Yo, what's going on, Divi? How are you? So now if I run the test again, you're gonna see that it should succeed. There we go. So you see that what's going on over here is we know that friend request service is going to throw an error. So if we do expect rejects to throw, and what this will do is it'll basically wrap everything so that way we can actually assert that it will throw the exception. Okay. Now, of course, if you want to test to ensure that there's no false positive, go ahead and just do HTTP, or you could just test a different exception. So do something like a friend request pending, right? Friend request pending exception. And you can see it should fail, I think. Let me just save. Should fail. Okay, there we go. You see how it throws an error now because it says we're expecting a friend request not found, right? But we're expecting a friend request pending, but we received a friend request not found exception. So this is how you can test specific exceptions to be thrown, which is how I would personally test exceptions to be thrown. So let's go ahead and change it back to friend request not found. Okay, so this will ensure that if there's no request found, it will throw the error. Okay, so now let's go ahead and write another unit test. And this unit test will be a little bit different. What we want to do is we want to test to ensure. So we already tested this if condition over here. We know that if there's no request that is returned by find by ID, then we know that it will throw an error, and we wrote that test right over here. Good. Now we need to test this case. We need to make it so that if the friend request that was returned from the database, if the sender is not matching the user ID, then it's going to throw a friend request exception. So how do we do this, right? How do we do this? Well, here's what I'll do. I'll create another mock. Well, I'll create a stub is what I should call it. So let's do this. Let's do it should throw an error when friend request .sender.id is not equal to let's see, the sender ID can only be canceled by the original user. So go to the original user ID. So like I said, you want to it should throw error when sender ID is not equal to the user ID. Okay, there we go. So we'll name it like this. And so now what we'll do is this. We'll go ahead and we'll need to spy on the method again. Okay, we'll need to spy on this method again. So we'll copy this. And what I want to do is instead of resolving an undefined value, I want to actually resolve a truthy value, which is friend request. Now, here's how I would mock out or stub out my data, my test data, right? I would basically assert it as a friend request, because if I don't do this, right, it's going to expect me, TypeScript is going to require me to literally mock out every single field. So for example, if I don't do that, right, it's going to give you an error saying it's missing the following properties: ID, sender, receiver. And then you have to pass an ID of 20, receiver And then you would have to basically mock out every single like piece of data. Like for example, I have to mock out an ID for this. What else do I have to mock out? Email, blah, blah, blah. And you would have to mock out every single thing, and that can gotta get really tedious. So you can only just mock out or stub out the data that you really need. And the data that I really need is really just the receiver's ID, just to ensure that my test actually works. So that's why you can just use this as friend request to assert this object. So that way TypeScript thinks that this is an actual friend request, so it doesn't complain about that. So really the ID that I only care about, the property that I only care about is receiver.id. So I'll make this ID 50. Okay. So what we'll do, actually I think it's supposed to be sender ID. So I really only need sender. There we go. Okay. So now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and expect an error to be thrown when the IDs don't match. So watch this. So expect friend request service dot cancel. So what we'll do is for the ID of the friend request, that could be whatever we want because we don't care about the ID of the friend request. But the user ID must match that sender ID because remember, in order to cancel a friend request, you must be the sender. Okay, only the sender can cancel the friend request. Okay, so what we'll do is we need to make it so that if the user ID does not match the sender ID, let's say the user ID is 30, then it's going to throw an error. So watch this. So we'll expect rejects to throw, and it should throw this error. Let me find it for you real quick. It should throw a friend request exception. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So let's go over here to throw friend request exception, and let's go ahead and import that up top there. So now if I save, let's rerun the tests. Okay, so you can see that right over here, it's actually working. Now, I can also ensure that the test actually is not a false positive by passing in the wrong exception to ensure that it is actually doing what it's supposed to do. So if we look at it, it's going to throw an error. You're going to see that it says that the expected constructor was friend request not found, but the received was friend request exception. So we know that this case over here is actually working because the IDs don't match. Now, to also ensure that we are 100% valid, I can also make it so that the user ID matches the sender ID, and so this test case should fail because it should not throw an error. So watch this. Okay, you see how now the test fails because it doesn't actually throw the error, and it's actually also doing another thing. It's also calling the delete function as well. So hopefully that makes sense when it comes to testing. Okay, so there we go. So let's write another test case for the final function, which is just this delete function over here. Okay, so we do need to make sure we mock out the repository's delete function. And so what I'll do is I'll go into, let's see, I'll go into friend request repository. So we have find, and we'll also mock out delete because that is also the other function that we need. And I'll just call just.fn because I don't really need to do anything with this mock function. These are pretty useless. We only really need them just to ensure that we are ensuring the parameters are being called correctly. Okay, but you could have it return mock data if you really needed to. Okay, but personally I prefer just using just.spyon and mocking the implementation. Okay, so now what I'll do is this. Let's write another test case, and let's make it so that we'll pass in the correct values, okay, and we'll ensure that there are no errors being thrown and that it's going to call delete. Okay, so let's do this. Let's say it should not throw error and call delete, call friend request repository dot delete. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and set this up. So first thing I'll do is I'll call just.spyon, and I'll literally use the same exact data. Okay, I'll use the same exact data. You could probably put this defined as globally up here. So I'll do const mock friend request equals sender ID 50 as friend request. Okay, and then I'll just pass this over here. I'll pass this over here. Okay, so now what I'll do is this. We'll go ahead and do this. Expect friend request service, And so we'll call cancel. Now we'll call cancel with the correct arguments. So for the ID of the friend request, it doesn't really matter. We can pass in whatever. I'll pass in 3, 2, 1. The user ID needs to ensure that it matches this ID over here. Otherwise, it'll throw that error. It'll throw that friend request exception error. So we'll pass in the same ID. So that's going to be 50. Okay. So now what I'll do is I'll say expect friend request.cancel not to throw friend request exception. So watch this. It's not. So if we run the test now, it should not throw an exception. Let's just save this again. Sometimes you have to save again because watch mode it lags a little bit. Let's see what's going on over here. Oh, let me see. Yeah, so let's do rejects not to throw friend request exception. Okay. I think actually this might not be a good way to write our test. I think let me do it like this. Another thing that we could do is we could also just make it so that way we could just call this function, right? And then what we could do is we could just assert that the delete method is called, because we know that if the delete method is called, then the 2 errors above were never thrown at all, right? So let me just call await friend request.cancel. And who's calling me? Not sure who's calling me. Anyways, so we'll do await friend, well, not this. We'll do expect, and then we'll do this. We'll expect the friend request repository dot delete method to have been called with, and remember we're passing in the ID right over here. So the ID is going to be I believe 321, right? That's the friend request ID that we're deleting. Okay, so now if I save this, test should pass, and you can see that the test passes. Okay, so it's actually better to write it this way because that's why that when you know that it's calling delete, it will not throw any of the errors at all. Okay, you don't really need to worry about testing if the error was thrown if you know that the error will be successful. As long as you're just calling, as long as you're asserting that friend request repository.delete has been called with the correct parameters, then you're good. Now, if I change the parameter over here, you'll see that the test is going to fail. How are you doing? I just dropped by to say that your Discord name reads Ensign, not Anson. Oh, does it? I'll have to fix that. Okay, so now you can see that the test fails because you can see that it expected 322, but we received 321. So hopefully that makes sense. I know that there was a lot that we went over, but I know it might be a little bit overwhelming. But unit testing is something that isn't really easy the first time, but it takes a lot of practice to really get used to it, if I'm being honest with you. So hopefully I did not bore you guys to death, and you guys learned a thing or two with unit testing. But yeah, so this is what we'll do when it comes to writing unit tests, is just, you know, doing this over and over again. And then when it comes to writing unit tests, when it comes to writing end-to-end tests, I think writing end-to-end tests would be way more fun than writing unit tests, if I'm being honest with you, because the end-to-end test actually works with real data. You know, you can actually work with real test data. But yeah, hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, that is going to be pretty much it with this live stream. I am going to get off because I got to go take care of some other stuff. So I hope you all enjoyed the live stream. I had a lot of fun streaming for the past, I think we've been streaming, how long have we been streaming for? Like about 12 hours or so. But yeah, I'll be streaming again tomorrow, probably around 3 a.m. same time as usual. So you'll catch me again here at 3 a.m. tomorrow, Pacific Standard Time. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed the live stream. I had lots of fun chatting with you all and showing you guys what I know and learning from you all as well. So I will go ahead and sign out. So thank you all for joined the stream today. I really appreciate every single one of you for supporting the stream and supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. And I will see you guys next time. Peace out.